The sponsor of this episode is Chadwell Supply, an OG in the multifamily industry. Chadwell is the largest privately owned maintenance and repair supplier, and they deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. To find out how Chadwell Supply will make your day better, visit www.chadwellsupply.com/difference.
Hey there, welcome to the Multifamily Mixtape podcast, brought to you by Multifamily Media Network. I'm your host, Mark Sharp. Multifamily Mixtape is an eclectic podcast as we will discuss any and all things multifamily, from maintenance how-to videos to interviews with industry experts. So sit back, relax, grab a drink, and join me for some campfire-style conversation and maybe a few laughs.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Multifamily Mixtape. Today with me is 22-year veteran Katie Spillers. A lot of you know Katie, but one thing you may not know about Katie is that we share a birthday. Isn't that right?
Right, birthday twins.
Birthday twins. 17. Let's
That's
go.
Right.
So Katie, how are you? First off.
Doing great. Glad it's almost Friday and that Hurricane Debbie is almost out of here.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that, if you'd watched I'm looking out my window. That's what's over there, by the way. I was expecting there to be more rain here in the upstate. I think some areas may be getting hit a little bit hard, but where I am in the upstate, but I hear the lower state got hammered. We were on a call today with the state, and who was it? Said they had 3 feet of water.
Christy Dukes in Folly Beach.
That's right. Wow, I see that part. I hate that. I hate that for the coastal towns. But I'm very thankful that we're staying somewhat dry.
Absolutely. It's impacted the courts. So that's why our phones and emails at our office have been going off nonstop as who's holding court, who's not, who's closed, where are they reopening.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Goodness gracious. Well, we'll get into that in a little bit, but I want to start off with the first question I ask everybody. Katie, how did you find your way into the multifamily industry?
Well, I rented an apartment in college. My now husband and I moved from our hometown of Lawrence to Greenville to go to college. I had planned to get my paralegal certification and then go on to be a civil rights attorney. And he is a very talented artist and was hoping to get some prerequisites under his belt and then transfer to the Savannah College of Art and Design. But obviously, there were other plans for our future.
Yeah.
I thought I was making the big bucks. I was making, I want to say $12 an hour, maybe, at Dillard's in the shoe department. I've worked in fashion retail since I was 15. I think everyone should have to work retail or fashion retail. It will set you up for being able to deal with the public and, and being able to be a more conscientious shopper for sure. But I was working at Dillard's and they were going to have to cut my hours. So I'd been passing out resumes at the mall and happened by the leasing office and had forgotten that a few weeks before I needed to use their landline. That's how long I've been doing this. Yeah.
Landline. Okay.
Their landline. Yeah. Okay. Because Brad, that's my husband, Brad and I shared, Brad, shared a cell phone, a singular cell phone. And my mother said, you're going to need a landline. And I'm like, no, we'll be fine. We're college kids and we're cutting costs. Well, Mama was right. So I happened into the leasing office and asked Liz Ashworth, who was the manager there at Park Haywood here in Greenville with MAA. Liz, can I use your telephone? My mom says I need to hook up a landline. And so I go Southern Belle. That's how long ago this was.
Oh, yeah.
And so I call and set up my landline and I get off the phone and Liz is just staring at me and I'm like, what? She said, you have a great professional phone mannerism. Do you need a job? And at the time I didn't. I was making big bucks at Dillard selling shoes.
$12 an hour. Let's go.
I mean, it was, and I got the discount.
Make it rain.
Right. So I didn't even think about it. So when I go in to, to pay rent that day and told her, what you been doing today? Oh, passing out resumes at the mall. you didn't come here? And she said, we have a leasing consultant position available. We'd love to have you. And so I said, okay. I talked to my mom, talked to Brad, and we thought being working in an office environment would give me a good foundation for paralegal and then a law career. And so I said, okay, I'll do this. So we started the training, and this was so long ago that, and I'm sure MAA has changed by now, they wanted, or is the industry standard, they wanted the prospect to ask you 3 times for the price before you actually gave it to them. Your goal was not to get cussed out, because people did not like to hear that. Like, I hear price is important to you. What else is important to you in your apartment home?
There's one.
Yeah, exactly. So we went through the training, and we were supposed to have a 2-week training. So I remember her name. Her name was Deborah Dozier with MAA. And we got through it in a week because I just fell in love. It was so cool. Brad had to be my guinea pig. If I could get him off of the play phone without him asking me the price, and I got him to commit to an appointment, then it was successful. And we did that because now you're out on your own, you're making your own money. This has to work. But my rent went down to $209.
There you go.
All those years ago, 1 bedroom, you could not find anything near that now. But that's where it started, is just leasing an apartment and needing to use their telephone.
That's crazy. I mean, you know, you were there. You were at SCAA. I've told this story so far, I think, on every single podcast I've done. But you were sitting in the room when I think it was Dr. Debbie Phillips asked the question, how many of you chose the multifamily industry? No one raised their hand. No one. And it's like, so every guest I have, I'm asking, how did you find your way? Because I'm waiting for somebody, if there's anybody out there, to tell me, oh, I went to college for this, or, oh, I went to school for this, or, oh, my mom or dad did this, and I just knew that's what I wanted to roll into. But I haven't come across it yet. So far, everyone I've talked to has found it by accident.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we'll get into maybe the whys on that a little bit later, or maybe on another episode. But you know, I do wonder why. Like, why do people just not choose this industry? Do we have negative press? You know, when you think about the TV shows you watched growing up in your $209 apartment, and you know, when you were watching a sitcom and the family lived in an apartment, or the family lived somewhere, and they always had to call the maintenance guy, or the landlord. He always come barging in with the big old thing of keys and his tool belt and his plumber butt crack showing, and you know, and so it's like you never saw people in our industry shown in a positive light. And so I just wonder if, like, our generation of people just didn't choose this industry because we never saw anything that portrayed it positively.
No, yeah, there's nothing really out there. I watch a show called Insecure, and it's with an actress named Issa Rae, but on the show she's Issa D, and she finds herself a landlord, and so she's managing the property, but her door says property manager. So the people come and knock on her door. So it shows our industry, but from a standpoint of a property manager that is constantly having residents knock on her door, which I had it happen when I was on site too. They just know where you're taking the groceries up, and they've got a noise complaint that happens, but they come knocking on your door. But I've only seen that aspect. There's not anything out there that shows like positive, or even the Netflix show Made. Mm-hmm. That was there, where she was cleaning apartments. She was trying to find housing and was having such a hard time. It's really not something that you hear, children when they're writing what do you want to be when you grow up? I've not heard one say they wanted to be a property manager. It's just not a career field that, we're doing some stuff about that, but not a career field you see really being talked about in the school system, like your teachers, doctors, lawyers, those type of professions.
Sure. So that was the perfect segue into something, but I don't want to go there yet. So we'll put a pin like right there. on what we were just talking about, because I do want to cover a couple more questions with you before we get into that topic. But so you mentioned you were hired as leasing, but tell me about the roles that you served while you were on site working. Obviously, you're no longer a leasing professional, so tell me the steps. Tell me what you went through, what kind of education you invested in, like what did you do to perfect who you are? Like how did you what were your steps? How did you get to where you are now?
Sure. Well, after working with Liz at Park Haywood for, about 6 months, she was going to take a job at the Polos at Hudson Corners, which was with Epic Properties. And she, by then, was like, this is my leasing consultant. We are a package deal. I don't go anywhere without her. So the regional had already hired someone for the leasing consultant position at the Polos, but Liz convinced her to stay around another day and talk to me. And so I went in and interviewed, and Connie was her name. And she said, I thought we had our girl, but no, that's our girl. And Liz said, I told you we were a package deal. So while I was there, she got me involved. Well, she really got me involved with the apartment association when I was at Park Haywood. A lot of her industry friends, a lot of folks we know, Cinnamon, that, he's a mentor to you.
Absolutely.
Michelle Chapman, who was Michelle Tucker back then, all worked along that Haywood Road, Karen Burks, along that Haywood Road corridor. They were all very involved in the apartment association. So Liz said, you're coming to supplier appreciation with me. So she introduced me around and said, they have their own education. Like, I know you're in school, and I still was for 3 years. I'm just from having my paralegal certification. But she said, we actually have our own education. So in 2005, I went and got my NALP certification, started teaching for the apartment association in 2005, 2006. And up until I got my plate way too full, I was still teaching that class. But when I started to educate myself and meet other people that were like-minded, who did what we do, it started to open my eyes a little bit about the big world we live in, and that we get so trapped on our properties sometimes that we don't realize we're part of something so much bigger. So after learning a lot more, was promoted to senior leasing consultant because they didn't have any other properties. They wanted to do a title promotion and hopefully keep me around for a little bit, because back in the day when people used to shop you, like secret shop you,
Terrible. I hate those.
I would get into the model sometimes, and the person would say, Katie, I'm actually such and such from the property down the road. Do you want to come work for us? To the point that Liz, like, it happened so many times that Liz she got mad, which I understand after having been a property manager myself, like, quit trying to steal my girl. But they did everything they could to help me educate myself. Well, the property, after being senior leasing consultant, it ended up selling. And, well, let me back up a second. Joy Davis came to work at the Polos at Hudson Corners with us. And I knew nothing about marketing and building relationships and driving traffic. I just knew that the Apartment Finder magazine was going to fax me my leads and that I was going to fill out like brochures, handwritten, and I was going to mail them. That's all I knew. I did not know that there was a bigger machine driving the traffic, or that we could be influential in getting that the prospective residents to our property. Very early on, everything I learned about that came from Joy Davis. We were looking through the newspaper, who's getting married? They're likely going to need a place to live. We would laminate their engagement announcement, find their address, mail it to them with a cute little, we would love to be your next home. And we would get baskets together and go out to our preferred employers. And I called it Beat the Streets Marketing. She taught me everything I knew about that. And that was when the internet was so new to our industry that we didn't have the ability at that time to just change your ad in real time. I would have to call, because email was not a thing. Leasing consultant, I didn't have a computer on my desk. I shared a computer with two other people. But we would all end up just going out and doing our marketing thing and learning everything I could about that. But again, the property ended up selling. And I was offered, and again, going with Liz because she didn't want to stay with the current company. So we went to work for what was then Hediger Enterprises at what was then Eastridge Estates. It's now Palmetto Place. And so I was assistant manager there. So I started learning the financials, what that looked like, and quickly learned that the owner's objectives were the most important thing because this was a property the owners were looking to flip and sell for profit. So this was also a LIHTC property. I'd never done that before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So bonds and all that, doing the bond report. And it was all very, very, very new to me to do a bond report. And at that point, because of my leasing and sales, ownership came in and just kind of observed everything. And he said, I'm pulling her off bond report. She needs to be front and center when people come in here. I can find somebody to do the paperwork. Let her tell me what the people want. So learning how lighting fixtures and updating and all this was going to impact the property and its profitability and its ability to sell was important to the owners. I had to learn all of that and was there for about 6 to 8 months. It wasn't very long before, again, Liz got another offer from Sealy Realty, from the president of the company, from Steve Kennedy. And he said, I need an area manager who will also help me get this property leased. That's 502 units. And if memory serves, this was 2006. They were sitting at about 70 something occupied. Wow. That's a lot of vacancy.
Yeah.
So Liz said, I've got your girl. He said, I want the best in Greenville. And she said, well, I've got her. And her words, not mine. And so I went with her and went to Huntington, and it was an older asset, and just met the Sealeys, and they were just the kindest, most down to earth. You would never know that they were owners, people, just regular folks. So learned a lot there as the leasing manager. So I went from assistant manager to leasing manager, but going from, I forget how many units Palmetto Place has, but up to 502. Oh boy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot different.
Oh my gosh. And 502 units, 24 buildings. It was a lot to learn. So there I learned, of course, having worked with Joy, knew a lot about marketing. So when they needed someone to help with the property in Anderson, Liz had left by this time, or she actually ended up going to that property. Some stuff happened, as it does, life. And so I ended up going to work there with Kristen Clem, who was the property manager at the time. And we did a lot of walk-in units, a lot of how are we going to drive traffic. So was there from 2006 until 2013. I helped at our property in Anderson at Raintree. At that, I still say our because I was with them from 2006 to 2013.
I say it all the time. It's our, it's mine, it's this, it's that.
Oh yeah.
I haven't worked for them in 20 years, but it's still our, it's still mine. Yeah.
Exactly. You put blood, sweat, and tears there. I will still take ownership.
A lot of it. Yeah.
For sure. But after working at Huntington until 2013, they kept looking at property. Anytime something would come open, me and the property manager at the time there, Jennifer Rambo, because Kristen left and Jennifer came, we would go look. We'd go shop, whether it was we're telling them who we are or we're not. Well, we ended up going to West Chase and ended up that Sealy bought that property. And the year before, in 2012, I had gone to Upper State, and our dear friend Carrie Plum helped all of us study to get our property management license. So I did what Carrie told us not to do, and I did not take the test immediately like I should have, just waiting on it because, I didn't know when Sealy was going to buy another property. I didn't know if I was really going to need to use this. It just, if you've been in the industry for 10 years, it seems like you should get every educational degree or opportunity you can. So let's go ahead and add this too. And so I'd taken the course. Once we got there, we knew that they were going to need a manager. And at the time, the president of the company, Mr. Kennedy, had passed away. So his son, Patrick, was helping. And he said, Katie, I need you to go take that test. I need you to manage this property. I'm like, no. And he said, no, you can do this. You can. And he and I worked together for several weeks because Sealy does things a little differently than some management companies. So we had to do the Sealy way at West Chase. So he said, I never realized how strong you were. You've really got this. Like, I hope you'll consider. So he gave me one day to cram and then go take my test. And so I went over there and I told the girl, I'm going to drop it like it's hot if I pass this test. and did. So ended up getting a pre-management license. But Sealy had, or well, not Sealy, the West Chase had 4 owners the year before Sealy purchased it. So it took a while to get the asset stabilized, everybody on the same page, on the same lease agreement even. So I could not take my hand off the cradle for a little while. So my association involvement had kind of fallen off. But when Joy, of course, we kept in touch over the years, she called me and said, guess who's going to be the new AE for Upper State? And I'm like, who? She said, me. So we all went out and celebrated at the local Q. And she started talking to me about the board of directors. And I had no idea we even had a board. I thought whoever was speaking up there had drawn the short end of a straw or a stick or something, and that they were the one that just had to speak in public that day. But after learning what I did about the board and from her, just getting more involved, teaching some more classes, and just ended up meeting Chris at like many events, but specifically Splash for Pack, what we did in the parking lot out here, and just chit-chatting. And eventually I was named Community Manager of the Year of 2017, and Loebsack and Brownlee had sponsored the award. So had a picture with Chris there. We got to talk. And of course, serving on the board with Matthew Morrison, with our buddy Matt, talking to him about how I was getting burned out on site. It happens. I was starting to get compassion fatigue, things that I knew were not me. You just not good. Mental health started to fail. And I just knew there was nowhere else for me to go. Like, what else would I even be good at? I was like, oh, well, I went to school to be a paralegal, only like maybe 2 or 3 credits shy. I'm like, Matt, I will sweep the floor. At this point, I'm so burned out. And so he ran my name by Chris, and then the pandemic happened. So a law firm that files evictions couldn't file evictions with the moratorium. It's challenging. So had to wait a little bit. But when the timing was right, went back and talked to Chris, and they were ready to expand in the Greenville area. So I joined Loebsack and Brownlee 3 years ago, September 13th. Can't believe it's been 3 years already.
Wow. Okay.
Time. So I'm now our eviction services manager for the upstate, where I process eviction cases. And actually, apartment association involvement is part of the job. We have an industry leadership program to where if you serve on a board or if you chair a committee, you actually get paid. It's part of your paycheck.
I like that.
Oh yeah. So we're encouraged to get involved and stay involved, and we can be as involved in any affiliate that we're connected to as we'd like. So, and it's encouraged. So
That's
long
awesome.
story short, that was point A to where I am now.
That's great. But I mean, it's important, it's important for people, I think, to know that, because, one of the really cool things about this industry is that when you do see somebody in this industry on television, it's always a grumpy maintenance guy who doesn't know how to fix something, or ruptures a pipe and causes the main actor's apartment to flood, or whatever. It's never seen as a good thing. But it's interesting to hear people tell their stories because of the steps and the process in which they go. And so, starting as leasing, getting to learning the marketing. And I tell you, if anyone watches this, there are people that are flipping out that used to go through the newspaper to find engagement announcements, and that you put packets together, mailed it out. Because I almost guarantee you no one does that anymore. So people are going to be writing stuff down, listening to this, like, oh, wow, this is how they used to do it back in the, and so that was awesome. But just to hear the steps, and there are more positions in this industry than just a maintenance guy, than just a leasing, than just a manager. And sometimes people take a direct path from point A to point B. That you get lucky. You meet an owner, you have a cup of coffee, you have a nice conversation, and that's how dialogue starts. Or you get involved in the apartment association and you start meeting new people, and doors open all over the place. There's so many different avenues at which this industry can take someone. It's not just on-site working at a property. And just to hear everyone's steps through the process, it's all different.
Oh, absolutely.
No one gets to the end zone the same way.
And the way you think you want to go, or what you think you might want to do, sometimes gets completely changed. I wanted to be regional training. I wanted to do that kind of thing, training, education, more so than I wanted to manage property. There was just nowhere for me to go there. And another important part of the story too is the amazing people that we meet along the way. Like, I really and truly was very, very blessed to have some great residents that are still part of my network. They're still on the ones that I could trust to be on social media, that wouldn't message me that their neighbor was doing X, Y, or Z while I'm on vacation with the family or what have you. But just some of the difference that we're able to make in someone's lives, because where they live is the most important part of their life. It's home. Absolutely. It's their refuge. And it was never lost on me until I started getting compassion fatigue, which is very real, that they could have chosen anywhere in the upstate to live, but they chose my property. And every interaction I have with them, every interaction they have with someone who works with me, is going to be a reminder of why they chose us, or further solidifies a decision that they're not going to renew with us, or they're not going to refer people to us. So it was never lost on me what a huge deal it is to welcome a new resident home. And I'll tell you, I choked back tears my last day. I'm not going to do it today. I'm not going to do it. But I always said, welcome home, whenever I would pass them keys. And the last day I worked, how often is it that the property manager is actually doing a move-in? It's not very common. But there's some choking back of tears when I handed those last set of keys. I had a fire in that unit, and it had taken months to get it back up and going. And finally, we could have our move in, and to slide those keys across on my last day and welcome that last resident home. Oh boy, somebody was cutting onions. I said, I'm sorry, ma'am. I've been doing this since I was 18, and I've welcomed probably thousands of people home, and I promise I don't cry at every one of them. But you're my last, and it was special. And that's another thing too. If people are looking to get into an industry where they can really and truly make a difference in someone's life, that kind word, we don't know what people are going through. That kind word of just passing them on the golf cart. Hey, how's it going? That dress is awesome. Hey, that's sharp blazer. It can mean everything to them that day. Right. So we mean a lot to people. We are truly America's housing providers, America's landlords.
Yeah. No, it's great to hear that story, because we're evil, right? Like, we're the enemy. We're the greedy landlords who are just trying to take advantage of America, the millions and millions of people, or not America, but the world at this point. We're the greedy people who are trying to take advantage of anyone and everyone. And, we need to cap your rent at 5%. We need to, because you're so greedy. No one listening to this would expect to hear you say, oh, I cried on the last time that I passed someone keys because this was my family. I built this. And you take such passion, as a lot of us do. We're not greedy. Are they out there? Yes. Yes, they are. My company's trying to put them out of business. Yeah. Like, I'm in the market to find slumlords to get rid of them. That's what I do. It's how I exist. So, they're out there, but it's not every property. It's just not.
The bad actors give the industry a bad name.
Right. And it's really disheartening when you have leaders, elected officials, who are misinformed and who think that we are all out there to get one over on everyone. And it's just wrong. It's wrong.
Yep. And unless they hear our stories, they
Right.
don't know any different. If we're not speaking up on our behalf, certainly no one else is.
So now we'll kind of segue from the how you got into the industry through your career to what you're doing now. Let's get into it, right? I mean, you are you wear a lot of hats for our multifamily industry, and locally for Upper State, you are our government affairs ambassador for Upper State. For the South Carolina Apartment Association, you're also a legislation ambassador. But talk to me about just talk to me about your involvement with NAA. Like, how did you, like, I don't think a lot of people know that you currently sit on NAA's board of directors. So please tell me, what's that like? What does that mean? PAC. You said PAC earlier. Like,
Mhm.
I know that that's the Political Action Committee, but for someone listening to this who doesn't know what PAC is, why is this important?
Sure. Well, and I didn't know either. It was our friend Laura Williamson, who I will always have a hard time not calling her
Laura
Laura
Hart, that's
Hart.
all it is. Sorry, Laura, if you're watching this, but you will always be Laura Hart to me.
Yep, she will. She called me one day at West Chase and said, Katie, there's a government affairs committee meeting tomorrow morning, and I need you to be there. It's at 9:00. And I'm like, how am I going to tell Laura I didn't sign up for the government affairs committee? Frankly, it sounded boring. It sounded boring.
Not my
Sounded like, yeah, like I wanted to be like excellence awards. Let's plan a party. Like I loved resident events and
yeah.
parties. That's great. And I was on your maintenance committee because I thought the world of my maintenance guys. Like Paul and I are
Yeah.
still buddies. I can pick up the phone and call him right now, and he and my husband are buddies. But had so many great maintenance folks, want to take care of them. Government affairs had not crossed my mind. And I went to the government affairs committee meeting, and they had this ticker up on the wall to show what their PAC goal was. I'm like, oh, well, what is that? And I didn't, know too much about it, but I was just listening. One of those whether to open or be silent and be thoughtful and open your mouth and remove all doubt.
Right.
So I just sat there listening. I'm like, okay, I really don't quite know what this is, but luck so had it, Victoria Cowart spoke at Champagne and Diamonds. That is an event that we had annually for quite some time. It's a PAC fundraiser. And when I heard her start talking about it and hearing her passion that, our elected officials, they really work for us.
Mm-hmm.
We elected them. We send them to city, state, or federal levels of government to make decisions on behalf of us as their constituents and as those that do business within their districts. And that the funds that we raise are bipartisan. We are Republicrats or whatever you want to say. We are independent-crat, Republic. If you are for us, we are for you. If they're a friend to the industry, then we raise funds that go to keep them in office. They are contributed to their campaign, heavily regulated. They can't go out and buy them a new Jag with it or anything like that. They have to use it within the confines of campaign finance law. So hearing that from Victoria, hearing that we need to reach out to them, they need to hear from us. And so she said, I'm giving everyone homework. I want you to go home and I want you to contact your state representatives. And so I did. And one of them was then District 6 Senator William Timmons. And William gave me his personal cell phone number and said, call me anytime. I'm your senator. Happy to help you. I'm like, well, I work in the multifamily industry. And he said, well, I've thought about getting into that myself. And so we spoke, and just so happened that my son Jackson's class was going to Columbia for a field trip. I think he was in the 3rd grade. And William said, text me when you get here. I'll come out and I'll talk to the kids and we'll answer questions and have a photo.
Nice.
So I called William. He came out from the Senate chamber, took a picture with Jackson's class. And it just so happened that he was running for Trey Gowdy's seat for the 4th District, which represents the majority of the Upper State Apartment Association's membership. Trey was going to go back into private practice of law. William wanted his seat. And so he was running for that. So it was beneficial for him to have pictures with the kids, and
Of course.
he used it. Oh yeah, he used it as his campaign Facebook post or his banner. So got to know William that way. And then there was a candidate engagement forum at the Greenville Library. Him, now Senator Josh Kimbrell, several others were there. Josh's wife, Lilia, used to work in the industry. So she's like, oh, my people, because she saw our NAA folders, because that's one thing the NAA will do. If you have someone who's running for office and you have an opportunity one of these people here is going to get elected. So if we can give them a folder with our not our talking points, but our issues, our one pagers, I didn't know what that was at the time, but if we could give them that folder and they can look through it, they'll at least be familiar with who we are. So started building the relationship with William. He ended up getting elected. And then I said, okay, well, there's 2 other members of Congress who represent USA's members, and that's down in District 3, Jeff Duncan, that's my hometown of Lawrence, and Ralph Norman, who represents York, Rock Hill area, and that's District 5. So talking to William in district, we'd had conversations, coffee with Congress, and at first, and he would co-sign on this too, because he knows it, he didn't know a lot about our industry. He thought if I had evictions on my property, I must run the slums.
Yeah.
And I was a little offended because I'm not going to work at the slums, sir. And but he didn't know. He really and truly was that uneducated.
Yeah.
But he allowed us to educate him. So every opportunity that I had, I would send him an email. I got to know his staff, made friends with his scheduler, and all of these things. And then I'm like, okay, if this worked with William, let's try this with Jeff Duncan and Ralph Norman. So meetings both at home in the district around this time of the year when they're on recess have been beneficial. Some of those included PAC donations. Some of them were just property tours, but being able to eventually have all 3 of them on 2 of NAA's 3 major legislative priorities.
That's right.
Was amazing. I was in Leadership Lyceum. Hannah Lockhart and I were sitting there, and I got a text from William, or I think it was from one of his people on his team. I think it was J.R. Schroeder, which hoping one of them will join us next week for our celebration for the Mid-South Affiliate of the Year. Oh, yeah.
That's good.
I've got somebody coming from Senator Scott's office and from William's office. So we're going to have some of them there to celebrate with us too, because it's
awesome.
part of their collective support that went into the submission. But I was able to build those relationships. And to this point, what you really want to happen is them to see the apartment association as their resource. And they can do other things aside from co-sponsor legislation. Jeff Duncan has submitted what's called a QFR, which is a question for the record for the YIMBY Act. It came up in a hearing for that piece of legislation, and he submitted a question for the record for us. And it just gets notated in the record that a question is a clarifying question. It's one of those where you're purposely leading the witness, but it's not considered faux pas. Ralph Norman just testified in a hearing on the CARES Act notice to vacate bill. He went up against Maxine Waters on it. Yeah, it was quite interesting. So he's spoken out. Not only is he co-sponsored, he's spoken out on behalf of that. So they'll do those type of things too. William has voted for those. He's co-sponsored, and you can see their voting record too. And they know I look at that. So I will call them if them not.
Oh crap! Katie's calling.
Oh yeah, for sure. They know what it is. They know what time it is.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't even I say work until you don't have to introduce yourself. I think you were there when we were going to advocate this year. I saw Rick Atkins with Jeff Duncan's office, and in the airport, I made a beeline for him. And we go up and we talk every opportunity that we get. And William had actually not gone back on YIMBY about this time last year. And so John Maudlin and I had gone to an event, and he was there, and I spoke to him. I'd emailed him a couple weeks before about it and sent him a text, hadn't heard back. Well, I didn't say a word to him about YIMBY that night. but I got an email from congress.gov with an alert that he had co-sponsored the legislation, and he knew why I was there.
Yeah.
And he comes to us now, and so does Ralph Norman's legislative director, Darcy. Something came up about manufactured housing that also is in our wheelhouse in the industry, and they needed an expert, and they came to NAA. And so our federal lobbyist was like, high five, that's what we want. This is the type of relationship that we want to have with our members of Congress, so that they come to us. They're not just voting or speaking blindly. They trust us as a resource.
Chadwell Supply is the proud sponsor of the Multifamily Media Network. Chadwell Supply is the largest privately owned MRO supply company and is committed to the multifamily industry. They deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. Chadwell Supply offers valuable resources such as maintenance training, a dedicated renovations team, and procurement platform assistance, ensuring multifamily properties operate more efficiently. Partnering with Chadwell Supply helps communities stand out in an increasingly competitive market. Learn more at chadwellsupply.com/difference.
That's good. So they're like, they themselves are wanting to become informed. So, I mean, elected officials get a lot of negativity, right? It's like, do you even know what you're doing? Do you even look at the stuff that you're voting for? But I think it shows that, at least in our state, Norman, Duncan, William Timmons are at least willing to look at the legislation and do what would you call it, a QFR?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, to put something on record, or to go to battle with Maxine Waters, or about our industry and about these things. And one thing I wanted to touch on, you said it multiple times, but for those people who don't know what YIMBY is, so that's yes in my backyard. But what is YIMBY? Like, what does that mean?
It's reducing the barriers of development of multifamily housing. So a lot of those things are handled on the local municipality level. And South Carolina has something called home rule. So even if it were to come up on the state level, they'd likely pass it back down to the local municipality to handle. But although a lot of times our industry looks for less government, this is a situation where the government could actually help, because they could pass a law on the federal level that would reduce the barriers for localities. So things like incentives, just working on zoning ordinances. It's on the news this morning, if anybody hadn't heard, here in Greenville. But all of these things go into the YIMBY Act, and the opposite is NIMBY and NIMBYism, not in my backyard. And some of the preconceived notions or fear that people have, although I haven't seen a correlation between crime and multifamily versus crime and single family. It's that stigma we talk about, though. And that's why it is so important that when we're in front of these legislators, that they hear our stories. And you'd asked about being involved with NAA. Obviously, they start seeing like all these people from South Carolina co-sponsoring legislation. And they're like, wait, what's going on? And that's where I got involved, or they came to me about becoming more involved with NAA. And I found out, NAA has committees too. And the time that I found out was when Mike Holmes was inducted to the as chairman of the board for NAA. And it was too late in November to have signed up for a committee.
Yeah.
So I put all that information next year, all the wins, into my application, and was selected for PAC ambassadors and for the NAA legislative committee. So I started working very closely with Jim Wilson, Victoria Coward, again, had been on the legislative committee. So just working with those folks, and then becoming friends with our federal lobbyist, learning what she does, and seeing like she knows that she has me. So if she needs anything from any of ours, she'll say, hey, ping your person with Duncan's office. I need him to do this. Ping your person with William's office, or I'm going to Ralph Norman's birthday party this weekend, or whatever it was. Yeah. So they start seeing what's going on in South Carolina. And so they developed a program at the time called the Key Contacts Program.
Yeah, and I remember that.
Yep. So I'm the key contact for those three offices for South Carolina. And as much as you want to learn, they'll teach you. There's webinars and training and all kinds of stuff. So after serving on PAC ambassadors, which we're responsible for these sweepstakes. So when the emails go out, it's our committee who has chosen those sweepstakes. There's a travel provider. We get the options in advance. So Kirk Downey, who is a supplier partner within the industry, just won when we were at Apartmentalize a few weeks ago, in June. And so he's going to choose one of the prizes. And we wanted to think out of the box this year. So one's like the CMT Awards, or CMA, Country Music Awards.
CMA.
So they're going to be, I'm not that much of a country fan.
It's in there somewhere. I know it is.
Oh yeah. Back in the day, the old stuff. But more of a trap queen for those who know. But so just learning how that works, learning that the PAC ambassadors actually set this stuff up. And then that's how a lot of the affiliates meet what they call their fair share. And then the fair share is what NAA sets as far as their fundraising goal. Anything above that can be used as what's called an affiliate share. So that's kind of discretionary. If we wanted to give up to $5,000, because you can't give any candidate any more than $5,000 in a year. So we have that cushion there. If we wanted to go down, like I just met with Nancy Mays, they wanted to give her a PAC donation, they can do so. So the more you raise above your fair share, the more discretionary spending for PAC the affiliate has. And I wouldn't have known any of that.
You just said it, and my mind is I'm just numb to it. Like I understand the importance of these things. We talked kind of off camera a little while ago about Advocate, and it was my first time attending Advocate, and I understand the importance of ending the CARES Act 30-day notice to vacate requirement. I understand reforming Section 8, working on, I don't want to say affordable housing. I mean, honestly, the definition of affordable housing is whatever you can afford. We all live in affordable housing, right? It's not a government subsidized term, so, but the Section 8 program, it needs to be revamped. It needs to be more, there needs to be incentives. It needs to be presented in a better way that more people would want to take advantage of it, because, it is a good program. There are people out there who need assistance, but all the discrepancies from state to state to state, and from this company doing this inspection to some company doing their own inspection, nothing is uniform. And so the program that was designed as a good thing, is designed to help, is awful. And it's not, companies don't want to participate in it because there's too much red tape. There's too much stuff to go through.
Yep.
And the inspection for someone to qualify for Section 8 is more strict than somebody who is trying to move in not on government assistance.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And if you didn't know that, you wouldn't know. And I've learned a lot about the program. I only worked LIHTC those 6 months I told you about, but as we've met with the members of Congress and we've educated them and listening, because I always try to be strategic when we have these meetings, myself and Maria, where we have someone who participates in the program who's there. And then maybe you have someone who doesn't anymore. So Maria and I call it gangbusters. So you can say, this is the problem that they're experiencing. It's why they left the program. This bill fixes it.
Right.
And so we're trying, it's been very difficult to get co-sponsorships for this program because it is so convoluted. I don't know that I've shared this yet. So breaking news, I'm going to be,
exclusive on the Multifamily Mixtape?
Yes.
Yes, let's go.
So interestingly enough, the housing authorities don't know this bill exists. They work in this every day, but a lot of them don't know it exists. I also volunteer as part of the Greenville Homeless Alliance, where I work alongside a lot of your colleagues from Affordable Upstate and NOAA. And I was at a stakeholder meeting a couple weeks ago, flanked by the CFO for Greenville City and Danny Barrett, who is the CEO of Safe Harbor. And I'm sitting there with imposter syndrome going, oh, Lord. But we were talking about Terrell Bates, who is the new CEO of the Greenville Housing Authority, was talking about the problems. And I talked to the city attorney or city CFO and said, do you know we have a bill that would fix everything she's talking about? She's like, are you serious? So I emailed Terrell when I got back to the office, and now I'm going to be giving a presentation on this bill to the board of directors for the Greenville Housing Authority, because how much more powerful would their endorsement be when we're having these meetings? Because I've had 5 with Ralph Norman trying to get him on this bill, and we're trying to get Nancy Mace on the bill. She's District 1 down in the Low Country Charleston area. Met with her a couple weeks ago. So to have had that information going in, that yes, now on the federal level, it's supported, but that's how much of a disconnect there is. That the local area chapters don't even know that there's a bill that would fix it, and that if we could all get behind it, I want to say it only has 7 co-sponsors. So yeah, there's so many. I've long thought we can complain about the problem, or we can talk to the people who can do something about it and actually try to bring about change.
There you go. It's funny that you just said that, our local chapters don't even know that there's a bill out there. What was it? How many years ago was it, Katie, when we went to the Greenville City Council meeting and our mayor had no idea that the Upper State Apartment Association even existed?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm sorry, who are you with? What is that? What do you do? But since then, we've started dialogue with the mayor's office. And again, now we have, you've got these, I don't want to say they're in your pocket, but I mean, they're not in your pocket. It's just that, now you have more powerful people to reach out to, because it takes that sometimes.
It does. And like, I try to invite a local, a state, and a federal to every last meeting that we have in person. Dorothy Dow came to one of the first of the year.
She did.
Connor Greer
with Brian Brown from Greenville Housing, right?
Yep, Brian Brown from Greenville Housing Fund. So bringing those people in and having them realize that we are a resource here in their backyard. And I've invited Dorothy next week. We'll see if she can join us. But just knowing that I can pick up the phone and call her. She's got my number. We communicate on email regularly, and I laugh and say I stalk our elected officials on social media, but I do, because I want them to continue to see my name, and I add them on LinkedIn. I tell everybody to do that. If you're a baby advocate, it's one of the things that you can start doing, posting about our industry, using strategic hashtags, making sure that they are seeing, like, who is this? And then all of a sudden, your LinkedIn views will be looking like mine, and somebody from the U.S. House of Representatives has viewed your profile, that kind of thing. Like oh God.
Do you pay for the premium though? Do you pay for premium LinkedIn?
I did, but I don't anymore. I mean, I'm not looking for a job. So
yeah. I just one of those things. I'm sorry, just off topic, but still, it's just like someone viewed your profile, upgrade to premium to see who, and it's like, nah, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. Thank you.
Exactly. I know who I stalk, and I do it unapologetically. They can stalk me if they want to too.
I'm not trying to hide it. It is what it is. So you mentioned Victoria Cowart earlier. I know that she is a mentor of yours. I know that she, I don't want to say like pointed you in the right direction, but she might have triggered something in your head to say, like you just heard her speak and you're like, oh, wow, I love that. I want to do that. I want to be her when you grow up. I mean, I've heard you say those words. Yeah. But just who else or what else, like how did you know, just in the years that I've known you, from being an on-site manager, to the change that you made when you moved to Loebsack and Brownlee, it's a completely different Katie. Like it's a more determined, more passionate, more like focused Katie, because we all get into the habit of getting into a position and figuring that position out, and then you're just on cruise control. It's just robotic. It's the same thing every day. It's like, hi, here you go, welcome. Would you like a cookie? Would you like some coffee? Would you like to see an apartment? I'm sure there's more things. I'm just trying to prove a point. But you get into it and you get to the point that you can do it in your sleep, or you can take a week's vacation and not come back to piles of files sitting on your desk because your staff is trained and things are happening. But you went from that to now being a very determined, highly focused individual. And in the length of time that you made the move from on-site management to Loebsack and Brownlee, all of these steps, all of these changes, all of these things that have just progressed through, other than Victoria Coward, like what else or who else can you attribute some of that passion? Like how did you find that?
Yeah, I think once that first bit of success with having a member of Congress listen and actually do what we've asked them to do, having those dialogues where you change their mind about something that they were very uneducated about,
Yeah.
I found my passion. I found my calling. It made sense to me why I was not chosen for certain opportunities, even within Sealy. And at the time, that was very hurtful to me. Like, I did not understand why I'm good enough. Why do you not see I can do this job? And it wasn't given to me. And I had to go through some times of being very real and honest resentment, self-reflection, seeing, ooh, am I toxic? Am I the problem? Just having to go through those steps of peeling the onion back and saying, okay, the realization hits you. And I don't mind telling people I'm 41. And the realization hits you at a certain point. And for mine, it was late 30s that, and losing people close to you sometimes too, that we're not here for a long time.
Yeah.
That any given time, protect us all, something could happen and we're not here anymore. And what have we done with the time that we're here? Are we somebody who has been I'm just going to complain about it and it's just grumpy Gus and not do anything about it? Or am I going to talk to the people who can help bring about the change? And then I've found that just like when you're on site and you're a manager and you have a new leasing consultant and you see the light come on in their eyes and you're like, now I can teach you renewals, or let me show you the variance report, and you start just bringing them along. Same thing, because when I switched from being on site to Loebsack and Brownlee, granted, I needed to be behind the scenes. I needed to be supporting the people on the front lines, not being on the front lines myself anymore, because I did leave it all on the floor. And a lot of times there was nothing left for my family. And so when I came to LMB, one of the crazy things that Stephanie Franks asked me was, how's your work-life balance? And I'm like,
what is that? What are those words?
but they cared. They wanted to know. And so now I found myself, I see now why people say on the supplier side, you do have a little more time. And our side of the industry ebbs and flows depending on when people file their cases. So as I had more time to dig in, and then I have the likes of Chris Loebsack and Will Brownlee in my G chat where I can say, I've always wondered about this, and just asking questions, getting more educated, being supported by them, and then feeling that longing again to have a team that you can bring people along with you, to be able to see that light come on in someone else's eyes and be able to help them along their journey. That's where committee involvement has really checked that box for me. When you've got a Mark Scully or a Hannah Kalinichenko and just folks like that, and Kristen Watson,
John
Tina
Motlin.
Baker. Yeah, all of them, just all these people, and John, my political partner. These people that are so interested, you can help them, help educate them. And that's just new. You don't have to work so hard. It just lines up when you're walking in your passion and in your purpose. The hardest thing is staying like this. And because stuff is going to try to distract you. It may be people or things or situations, but just remembering your purpose, your focus, and keeping your eye on the prize and not letting everything that can get in our way in this industry get in our way, where we are our own Achilles heel. Yeah. It's a lot of growing up I've done. A lot.
That's great. So you were just in Texas at Rawls. So tell me about the Advocacy Academy. What is that? This was the first one.
So it was the inaugural Advocacy Academy. So a few months back, well, I guess late spring, Seth Turner, who's NAA's grassroots advocacy director, came to me and said, I'm wanting to do something, and it's largely based on you and your ability to make connections with those in elected office. And I want to help build that. I want to multiply you across the United States,
Nice.
because we've talked about we don't have enough stories out there. So seeing that light come on in others' eyes, boy, last week was something. I was able to nominate 5 people from our affiliate, and 3, John was in on his, they chose John automatically. John's from California. He's been doing this way longer than I have. But I was able to nominate people, and several of them were selected. So that was really cool. But meeting people that are like-minded from all over the U.S., we taught them what I like to call the art of storytelling, which in my true, that's the Outcast song, and I use that hashtag on purpose. Oh my gosh. So, I love my hip hop. So the art of storytelling, because so much of what I was doing was building the plane while I was flying it. I didn't realize there really and truly is a method to the madness. And although I didn't know it, I didn't have the blueprint, I was doing what it is you're supposed to do to build that plane and fly it. And that's what I mean by walking in your purpose. It's just going to come naturally to you when you find whatever it is that is your particular purpose in this industry. And so being able to get with those students, help them perfect their stories. I learned so much. Like the Housing Choice Voucher Program was the bill, or the Choice and Affordable Housing Act was the bill that a lot of them were selected to make a story around. And hearing their stories. One applicant or student who graduated, she was assigned to me. I was playing her member of Congress. We were role playing meeting with a member of Congress, because it can be very overwhelming to people. It can be intimidating, just depending on what their level of comfort is. So as one student is telling me, I had my first room when I was 13. Great natural lighting, neutral interior, got a little cold at night, but that's okay. And then she goes on to tell the story. Her first room by herself was a car. She lived with her parents in a car because they couldn't afford their rent. They were on the waiting list for a voucher. She had working parents. That's a common myth of the Section 8 program, and one that we've had to overcome in meetings with members of Congress. And I was in tears. I'm like, oh my God, like this story, if told like this, and it's her true story. That wasn't unique. There was another person who was in my care, and they told me their story. They were a single mom living in the car with their 2-year-old. They've both gone on to be rock stars in the multifamily industry. And they started in those beginnings, and they were working. One, her parents were working. The other one, she was working. She just didn't have that equity, didn't have that little extra to help her be able to afford where she needed to live. So being able to have those students go in, and it's rigorous. Like day 1 was content heavy, 8 to 6. It was, you could feel your brain, but it's a lot of good information. Went over what it looks like for a congressional staff member, which I didn't even realize this. Sometimes they're taking 14 to 20 minutes or 20 meetings in a day. So that little time that we spend with the member of Congress at Advocate, you really got to pack a punch. You really have to tell a good story. So teaching them the art of storytelling, and then being asked to speak on a panel about grassroots advocacy and why it's important, and tell the country why we need to do what we do, and how I've done what it is that I've been able to do here in the upstate, was amazing. It was really an honor of my career. I hope they'll have me back, but I believe in paying it forward. I was talking to some of the students, like, now that you guys have done this, when you've worked your way and you've got these same stories, you come back and you help educate.
Absolutely.
You be the facilitator. I'll take a back seat and I'm going to cheer for you, because I've done what it is that I was called to do. Now it's time to see you rise up, and then find somebody else. And then we just continue to pay it forward, and that ripple effect happens, and more people are going to be telling those stories, not the greedy landlord twisting the mustache, but the real stories of the people who work on our communities every day and provide services to our industry.
Man, that is so cool. When you sent that to me last night about the Advocacy Academy, and then I didn't put it together. Like I saw I saw your LinkedIn post on the panel, and I read, but it wasn't. I didn't put it together. Like I had no idea. And then when you brought it up again on the state call earlier today, I went back and I was like, wait a minute, that's what that was. And so I went back and actually tried to pay attention to it as much as I could, as much as I could understand. And that is, I mean, how did you feel when Seth Turner came to you and said, hey, we want to build a program around you, about what you did. This is your story. We're just trying to duplicate it. Like, how did that make you feel?
Was blown away. Just like, again, when I got the email a few months ago that I was on the NAA board of directors, I'm like, surely they mean someone else. Surely they mean Victoria. Surely they mean John, or someone else other than me. And I think some of that is imposter syndrome. I'll talk about it in a class I'm teaching in a couple of weeks. I've had some candle blower outers. I've had some yum yuckers. And it makes you doubt yourself. It makes you think, oh my God, like people are going to talk junk about me. I don't care anymore. You're giving somebody else a break if you're talking about me. And it's fine. What are you doing to help our industry? Right. Really and truly, I'll wait. But it's one of those kind of things. It's where that kind of stuff that I was telling you about. You got to stay like this. You can't let that happen. So at first I'm like, oh my God, people are going to be like, oh, who does she think she is, or whatever. But I've worked really hard. hard for our industry and to make it better for even the candle blower outers and the yum yuckers. But I really was blown away, really was very shocked, but honored. And then what's interesting is not a lot of training went into this. This was very much I had a conversation on the way, 2 conversations with Seth, and then we were live. Mm-hmm. But I'm learning as I'm getting more confident and growing up at the ripe age of 41 that it's okay to roll with it off the cuff sometimes. If it's in your heart, it's going to come out of your mouth the way it's supposed to. That's and right. So we didn't have a lot of training on, or I didn't, for what we were going to be doing. I was leading like facilitated discussions amongst the group of what have you experienced? Because some of them have worked for members of Congress or interned. Just leading those types of discussions, but it ended up being one of the most incredible experiences of my life. I've been invited to speak in Arkansas and in St. Louis, and want to go through AFT now, and just fun stuff. So those doors just keep on opening. Like if people are really, if you're doing it for the right reasons, if you're in it for your, the industry, the flowers, they come here and there, and that's nice and everything, but the work continues. That's what it's about, and paying it forward.
That's right. You're not working once, you're working every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I have one last question. It's how I end pretty much every episode, but I want to know, if someone asked you, hey, I'm thinking about getting into the multifamily industry, what would your advice be?
Several things. One, you're going to love it or you're going to hate it.
And that's it. All right, good luck.
Yeah, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. No, but you have the ability, if you're looking for an industry where you really have the ability to make an impact on someone's life, because sometimes when people are moving, it's not for a good reason. I've been doing it for so long, someone could sit across from me and I'm like, they're getting a divorce or whatever it is. Right. Like you could almost smell it on them, but you're able to help them in one of the most vulnerable parts of their life. Nobody likes to move. And I used to tell people, if you're lucky, you move a few times in your life, but I've chosen this as my profession. If I'm not nervous, you don't be nervous. I do this every day. Mm-hmm. I'm not sweating this. You don't sweat this. I've got you. The ability to make a difference in someone's life is so unique in our industry. So many different opportunities to have your cup filled and fill the cups of others, and to pay it forward and to truly leave it better than you found it. If you're looking for an industry where you have a sense of purpose, and I do think for some people like myself, being on site does have a shelf life. You're going to hit those times where you're like, why didn't I get that promotion? Why wasn't I given this opportunity? It's because it wasn't meant for you, sis or bro. That wasn't what was for you. It's coming. So just continue working, getting involved in the association, net weaving, as Dr. Debbie Phillips says, and the right people will come to you in the right time, and those doors will continue to open. And you can't find a better career than the multifamily industry. We really and truly have something for everyone.
That's right. That is absolutely right. That's what I'm trying to get across. And I don't. I think it'll take a while in order, for me, how I'm tracking it to be able to tell if what we're doing is working, if we're changing public's opinion on the multifamily industry. I coach a high school swim team in my spare time because I have a ton of it, right? And we had a parent team meeting a couple nights ago, and I stand up and I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Mark Sharp. This is my 8th season, 2 children, blah blah blah. What I do for a living is this, and I get into it, and it's like, you drive down the street and you hate seeing all these apartments being built. I said, but I love it. I love it. And some of the parents laugh, and some of them are like, but I keep it coming. And with involvement in entryway programs and workforce development programs, which I think are now becoming a little bit more mainstream. Like 10 years ago, you never heard of workforce development, even though it was out there. It just seems like it's becoming a more mainstream thing. People are just jumping on the bandwagon because they're trying to make a difference, or they see that there's value in doing that. Not that I don't think they're doing it for the right reason. I think they are, but it just seems like it's becoming more popular over the last 2 to 3 years. Yeah. I think when Shelters to Shutters rebranded to Entryway, is when I noticed the big jump in workforce development programs and people reaching out and saying, hey, we want to create a program. How do we do it? And it's huge, and it's for everyone. I mean, there isn't a position, right? Maybe I need to reword that. There are more positions in this industry than people think.
Absolutely.
It's not just the maintenance. It's not just leasing. It's not just management. It's marketing. It's legislative advocacy. It's education. It's so many things. Yeah. It's crazy. But Katie, I thank you so much for coming on and spending some time with me today to one, just to introduce some people to you, but to spend a little bit of time telling us your story. But I would love to have you back sometime, and we can actually get into some of the specifics of the legislation. We kind of hit some of the topics today. We talked about some of it, but we didn't really get into the nuts and bolts of it. And I think there are a lot of things out there that the public would love to be educated on. We're doing things here locally, yes, but there's also things that have national impact. And whether you're listening to this podcast from South Carolina or California, I want to, the work that you're doing on a national level will affect us all. And I couldn't think of someone better to be out there fighting for us. So I appreciate what you do. But I thank you for spending some time with me, and, hopefully we can have you back sometime.
I would love that. Thank you for the opportunity. It's truly a labor of love and an honor to serve the industry that has supported me since I was 18 years old. I'll get back to it every chance I get.
That is great. Well, everyone, that is going to be today's episode. I thank you for joining me. If you like what you heard, please like, comment, subscribe. Smash that like button, whatever those influencers say. I don't know. But I appreciate you being here, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.
Thanks again for taking time out of your day to listen to this episode. I hope you found it entertaining and insightful. If you like this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also visit multifamilymedianetwork.com to learn more about our other industry podcasts and sponsorship opportunities. And until next time, don't be afraid to crank the volume.
Thank you again to Chadwell Supply for sponsoring this episode. Chadwell Supply delivers unforgettable service with next-day delivery, online and in-person maintenance training, and procurement platform assistance to make ordering simpler. Visit www.chadwellsupply.com/difference to learn how Chadwell Supply will make your day